this month, at the beginning of this month of November, I wanted to have a couple weeks where we talked about prayer and the importance and the power of prayer in the life of a believer. You see, one of the most important tools or gifts that we've been given by God is our ability to communicate with Him. Our personal relationship with Him is manifest through prayer. It's the way in which we communicate back and forth with God and the way in which God communicates with us. And so if we don't have a clear understanding of what prayer is, and if we don't have a clear understanding, of the importance of prayer, then our lives as believers are not whole. They're not complete. And so I figured it'd be nice to take this morning and a couple mornings in this month to talk about the importance of prayer. Every good relationship, every healthy relationship is based on communication. Based on the ability to communicate needs, communicate feelings, communicate and express things that are important to us. And that's why when you watch sitcoms or a lot of these comedies that are on television, you think, all of your problems could be solved if you would just talk to each other. If you would just say something. You know, it's funny to watch sitcoms, even sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, because so many of the problems in sitcoms that were in the 80s and 90s could be so easily solved by a cell phone. It's just like so many of these problems are like, oh no, I can't get a hold of somebody. I don't know where they are. What's going on? And now it's just like, you can just call them. Just text them on your cell phone. Oh no, somebody left a message for me on my answering machine and I didn't get it. What's an answering machine? What are you talking about? What does this even mean? You know, there's an episode of Friends where somebody gets a hold of Ross's pager number and they get the wrong pager number and start beeping him incorrectly, and it's like, what? Like, that sitcom plot has no relevance to my life today. I am never going to be in a situation in the coming 2000s where I am going to have a mistaken identity of a pager number. That's just never going to happen. And yet, even beyond that, we see that the problems in our own lives can so frequently be solved simply by honest and open communication. How many arguments could we have just solved in our lives if we had just said what we actually meant instead of getting around it? How many problems could have been solved in our families if we had just said, okay, this is what I'm really upset about. You know, we choose something to manifest and to go off and to get mad and to scream about that has nothing to do with why we're actually mad. And so before you know it, you're at the dining room table and you're screaming because the potatoes are mashed and not baked. And people are throwing plates across the kitchen and people are crying. That doesn't really have anything to do with potatoes. It has to do with uncommunicated and unexpressed feelings. And our relationship with God is the same way. When we don't have that open line of communication where we're telling God what we're really thinking and feeling, and we're giving God an opportunity to speak to us, it's only going to birth frustration in us. And so frequently we say, oh, I have all these problems, I have all this stuff going on in my life, and where is God? What is God doing about the problems in my life? What is God up to? The first question I always ask, and the first question we ought to ask ourselves is, well, have you prayed about it? And suddenly you go, oh wait, I don't know. You see, I have spent all my time complaining about it, and I have left myself very little time to actually pray about it. I have perfectly budgeted my time into a perfect little pie graph of complaining, whining, griping, and moaning, that prayer didn't make its way into that pie chart whatsoever. And so now I'm blaming God for problems I haven't even talked to Him about. I'm blaming God for things I haven't brought before Him. How does that work? How do you ever expect to have a successful relationship when you can't even speak in honesty? You know, this sort of thing used to happen all the time when I would work with teenagers. I was amazed at the stuff that was my fault. They had nothing to do with, most of the time, that I didn't even know about. I'd get kids coming into my classroom so angry. Well, what about this? What is this? And I'd go, What are we talking about? Well, I got sent to the office for a dress code violation. Well, were you violating the dress code? Well, yeah, but okay. What am I supposed to do about it? Well, yeah, but so-and-so was also. I don't care. They were in my classroom. You're in my classroom, and so I sent you to the office. How is this my fault? How is this a thing? Or sometimes you just get blamed for completely other stuff. Parents would come in and they go, well, my kid has 4 hours of homework tonight. And I'll go, none of it came from me. And they'll go, yeah, but don't you think 4 hours of homework is too much? And I go, I didn't do it. Just leave me alone. Just go away. Don't blame me for things I didn't do. And yet, so frequently, this is how we deal with our relationship with God. We're mad at God before we even give Him a chance to address our needs and our problems. And so that's kind of why I want to take this time to talk about prayer. So if we're going to talk about prayer, we're going to start in Matthew 6. Jesus says this, Matthew 6, starting in verse 5. He says, And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. And then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we have also forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. So Jesus is outlining this idea of prayer. What do we do when we pray? He opens up like this. He says, when you pray, don't pray like the hypocrites. Jesus is saying, first things first. When you pray, the very first thing that matters is motivation. Why are you doing this? Why are you praying? Are you praying so people will look at you and go, oh, how spiritual. Oh, I'm so impressed. Look at all the words they know. Oh, I'm just blown away. Oh my goodness. Look at how well they pray. No, don't do that. Jesus says when you do that, when you pray so you can impress people, you have already received your reward. You've already got what you're looking for. You've gotten what you've asked for, because what you asked for is to impress other people. And so if that's what you wanted, congratulations, you got it, but you're not going to get anything else out of it. Because that's your motivation. Your motivation is to impress people and not to pray. And to communicate with God. And it's so funny, because that's such a cheap knockoff, right? You and I, as believers, have been given the opportunity to have an open line of communication with the God of the universe, with the God who created everything. And instead, what we often choose to do is trade it away for some sort of personal gain, or some sort of perceived personal gain. Like, oh, I have the opportunity to talk with God, but instead, I think I'm going to use it to make these 20 people around me think that I'm more spiritual than I am. That seems right. That seems like a fair trade. I have the opportunity to communicate with the God who created me, who has the ability to meet all my needs. But instead, I'm going to try and make myself slightly look better to people whose opinions don't really matter anyway. Yeah, that seems right. That seems like a fair trade. And yet we do it all the time. We do this kind of thing all the time. So Jesus starts there. He says, don't be like the hypocrites. They receive their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Jesus is saying, when you communicate with God, it's serious business. When you communicate with God, what you're doing is you're building intimacy in your relationship with God. So it's sort of like, we talk with all sorts of people throughout the day. I talk with my friends, I talk with my family, I talk with the person at the drive-thru when I order, I talk with the people who call me on the phone, no matter who it is. We talk with people all day. Talking with someone is not an indication of relational intimacy. Communicating with someone is an indication of relational intimacy, and there's a difference. I was on the phone, it's probably about 5 years ago, booking a cabin in Tennessee for a senior trip, and I was on the phone with this lady, and we were talking. I have a problem with accents. I am what I call accent contagious, which means anytime I'm around anyone with an accent for more than about 5 minutes, I begin to pick up that accent, and I can't help it. I begin to speak, and so I'm on the phone with this lady, and she's from Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And so she's talking, and I'm having this conversation with her, and I can't help it, and I'm not trying to do it because I know people think I'm making fun of them, but I'm really not. And so as the conversation goes on, I start to kind of get into a little bit of a lilt, and I start to begin to communicate like this, and my speech begins to slow, and I begin to come up with a little bit more of an accent. And now pretty soon I've gone a little south of Tennessee, and now I'm all the way down to Alabama. Now I'm all the way down to the Florida Panhandle, and I can't control myself, and this is how I'm talking. And it's like, oh my goodness, I don't even know this person. And so at the end of this conversation, this lady's really friendly, and she goes, all right, I'm in a classroom full of students at this time, remind you, and she goes, all right, I can't wait to see you when you come down. I go, yep, love you. And to her credit, without missing a beat, she goes, love you too, have a good day. And just hangs up the phone, and I thought, okay, this is not an indication of my relational intimacy with this random woman who runs the cabin place in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, just because I talked on the phone with her, even though I said I love you. It's the difference between that kind of relationship and the relationship that I have with my best friends. When things happen in our lives, good or bad, we want to tell each other. We want to talk to each other. When my best friend called me to tell me that she was having a baby, I felt such joy because of that relationship. When she called me to tell me that she lost the baby, I felt such grief and such sorrow because of that relationship. Because of what's there, because we have that relational intimacy that's based on communication. It's not based on the stuff we say to everybody. It's not based on the fact that we call each other, just to talk about nonsense or the stupid stuff we saw on TV or a stupid song that we heard that reminded us of this time we went to a party 8 years ago and the crazy guy was eating. I'll tell you that story later. But our relational intimacy is built on those moments of open and honest sharing, those moments of connection. And our relationship with God is based in the same way. That's why Jesus says here, when you pray, and you go into your room and you shut the door. And you share with God. When you stand on the street corners and in the synagogues and you stand up here and you pray with your arms open, you're not going to share your innermost hurts. You're not going to share the deep pain and the deep scars. You're not going to share your secrets. You're not going to share your secret desires and wishes and hopes and dreams for your life. But in those intimate moments, in those quiet moments, in those moments where it's just you and God, you do. And that's where that relationship is deepened. It's where that trust is deepened. Verse 7, Jesus says, and when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. It's this idea that prayer is not just something we do. It's not just something we're trying to hit a quota on. It's not just me going, oh boy, I haven't prayed, so I guess I ought to pray. Okay, Lord, thank you for the grass, and thank you for the trees, and thank you for the sky, and thank you for the birds, and thank you for the dogs, and thank you for the people, and thank you for pizza, and thank you for hot dogs, and thank you for Justin Timberlake, and thank you for our, We're not praying out of a sense of obligation or duty. We're praying because we understand the importance of it. We're understanding the effectiveness of it. We don't just babble on. We say, Lord, this is what's going on. Lord, this is what I need. Lord, this is what I want. This is what I'm struggling with. Lord, this is where I'm at. Lord, I need you. And that honesty and that transparency in relationship is what deepens that relationship. It's what deepens that relationship. It's not just the fact that, oh, I prayed today, check. I got that off my list. Boy, now I don't have to worry about doing that anymore. It's not like getting an oil change, where you think, oh boy, I've gone 3,000 miles and I haven't prayed. I guess I better take it in. Otherwise, my relationship with God is going to start making a clinking noise in the engine. No, we pray because it's necessary to our lives. We pray because it becomes an integral part of who we are as people. We pray because when we go without praying, we notice. We feel empty. We feel like we're missing something.
Amen. Amen.
You know, when I used to teach, I became an in-the-car prayer. And I used to, on my drive to school in the morning, it was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to teach another day. These kids are going to be crazy. Lord, I just need one day's worth of strength for today. I just need you to be with me. Lord, I know that you can do this. I know that you and I together, we can do something that matters today. Lord, you can help me make a difference. Lord, I can speak your truth and speak your words to these kids. So let's do it. Okay, good. And it became like my own personal morning pump-up session, where it was kind of like, okay, I can do this. I got this. I'm ready. Here we go. And it was kind of like having my own little motivational speaker in the car. Like, yes, you can do this. You're there. All right. And it became so much less about duty and about obligation to pray and so much more about, I need this. I recognize my need for this. And then what Jesus does next is he goes into what's become known as the Lord's Prayer. And it's this model for prayer. It says, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we've been in 2 Corinthians for Bible study. Jesus, that's the name of that guy. Semi-familiar. Jesus opens up and he says, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so, why did Jesus say we ought to pray like this? Why does Jesus open our prayer like this? Is it because God is on some sort of divine ego trip and he needs us to constantly remind him of how good he is? It's like, oh man, if we're not saying it all the time, God's going to get insecure. You know, God's going to forget that he's great if we don't tell him every 6 seconds. You know, so that's why we got to say, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. It's like, good. We don't want God to get a complex here. No. God knows who he is. God is not insecure. God is not worried about who he is. We say things like this to remind us of who God is. We say things like this to remind us of the divine power that God has, of the divine power that God has over our lives. I don't say, Our God in heaven, hallowed be your name, because it makes God feel great, or God has some kind of ego trip. I say it because I need to remember that I am addressing the God of the universe, the God who created galaxies and things beyond my wildest imagination, the God who created the intricacies, I knew I'd get there eventually, thank you, of our whole world, of everything that we are, of who we are as people, of everything that we see. I need to remember who I'm talking to. You know, there's a scene in The West Wing. I like The West Wing a lot. There's a scene where the president walks into a room and one of these sassy radio hosts, or she plays a sassy radio host, she sits down and she just talks with the president. She has a banter back and forth with the president. And at the end of it, he goes, Ma'am, in this White House, when the president stands, nobody sits. Because she needed to understand who was standing before her in that moment was the President of the United States. And when the president enters a room, everybody in that room stands. It doesn't matter how important, how powerful, what they are. When the president walks into a room and he walks into the situation room filled with 4-star generals, the most important and powerful people on earth, they all stand up when the president enters the room because they know who they're dealing with. And that's just a person. President's just a guy. How much more important do we need to have reverence when we address the God of the universe?
Amen.
And yet, in verse 11, what is the next thing Jesus says? Give us today our daily bread. It's this idea that when we deal with God and when we pray, what we're dealing in is contradictions. We're dealing with the idea that we are addressing the most unbelievable, powerful beyond our imagination, God of the whole universe, and yet He loves us so much and is so intimately involved in our lives that we can ask Him for something as simple as bread. We say, God, you are the most holy, most powerful, most sovereign God, and yet you love me so much that I can ask you for my most basic needs and you will meet them.
Hallelujah.
Isn't that crazy? We need to take a minute and stop and stand back and experience that truth for a moment. That God, big G God, Jehovah God, the God of the universe, loves you so much that despite His holiness, His power, He wants to meet your needs. Jesus says, forgive us our debts as we have forgiven our debtors, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. We say, God, you are great, and you are powerful, and I need you. This is hard. This can be difficult for us. We don't like to need anybody. We are independent. We are strong. We are self-sufficient people. That's what we tell ourselves all the time anyway. And yet, the crux of prayer and the crux of our relationship with God is this. We need Him. We need Him. We can't survive. We can't make it through. We pray because it is the thing that sustains us. That our relationship with God is what is getting us through every day. And we need a reminder of that. We need a reminder of where our daily bread comes from. We need a reminder of where our forgiveness has come from. We need a reminder of where our deliverance has come from. And it is from God. And it is only from God. Why do we pray? Why do we do this? Why is it that we are interested so profoundly in deepening our relationship with God? Isn't it enough for me to just say, well, God, okay, thanks for everything, I appreciate it, and get on with our daily lives? The deeper our relationship with God goes, the more fully we can experience life. Let me explain what I mean by that. If God is the source, right? He's the one who created everything. He's the one who gave you breath, and He's the one who gave you life. He's the one who filled you with purpose. He's the one who filled you with meaning. He's the one who made you the way that you are. He created you the way that you are. He's the one that did all of that. So the closer you get to Him, the deeper your relationship with God becomes. The more fully you can understand everything that's going on around you. Because everything that's going on around you was sourced from a holy and sovereign God. You know, when you watch a movie or you get the DVD of a movie, sometimes the track they'll have that you can play over it is it'll be the director's commentary. So you can watch the movie, and then you can watch the movie with the director's commentary on it. And if you're incredibly nerdy like I am, you like to do that kind of thing. Because the director will go, oh yeah, in this scene, we had to shoot this scene 76 times because we couldn't get the explosion just right. So we constantly had to, we spent $34,000 on explosives for one day. This scene, this line was improvised. The actor came up with this line on it. And it's so interesting to watch that of your favorite movies. Because you get to know the process of what was made. You feel like you're on the inside. The more we get to know the Creator, the more fully we can experience the created. The more you get to know your Creator, the more fully you can experience your life. What's going on here? The more fully we can appreciate this and this experience. We're going to take communion now. And as we do, I want us to reflect